Hey there, Matt Weiner for Fade In, and today I'm going to be wrapping up my conversation with Alice, our ChatGPT algorithm, so that I can start showing you how to use ChatGPT in a responsible and powerful way, which means getting robust analysis without generating any substance whatsoever. But before we start, here are a couple things that I've learned since my first chat with Alice. Number one, deep research. It is not unlimited. If you're on the plus plan like me, you get a finite number of deep research prompts before you have to wait until the next billing cycle. I'll explain why this is important later in the video, but it's something to be aware of. And number two, the agent feature. It is super cool and it can be used to automate lots of stuff, but honestly, I found it to be more trouble than it was worth. For screenwriters, I think it's better to keep track of what you feed into the machine instead of letting the machine do all the work. So I won't be using it, at least for now. But I don't know what the future holds. And I always reserve the right to change my mind. If I do, I'll let you know. Okay, so a roadmap for this video. First, Alice is going to explain the one thing that ties all of this together: tokens. Tokens, in a nutshell, ChatGPT relies on tokens for everything, from inputting scripts to hallucinations to how you ask it to analyze your work. Second, Alice will briefly tell you about Google's Colab and why we're going to be using it. And third, Alice will bore you with some technical information about reasoning levels, uh, JSON outputs. I think it's pronounced JSON outputs. I'm not a tech guy. This is all new to me. And also token caps and why those are important. Let's get started. All right, back with us is Alice, our algorithm for ChatGPT. Alice, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here again and ready to jump in whenever you are.
Okay, I got some questions for you, and I'll start with question number one. What are tokens and why do they matter for screenwriters?
Tokens are basically the little pieces of text that a language model uses to understand input and produce output. For a screenwriter, they just help measure how much text you're working with when you're using a tool like this.
Is there a token limit for every conversation that you have within ChatGPT?
There's a token limit for each conversation or interaction, which just means there's a maximum amount of text we can handle at once.
And what happens when you run out of tokens and your conversation is still going on?
Well, if we run out of tokens mid conversation, it's basically like hitting a little limit. We just have to either trim things down or continue in another turn so that we can keep the conversation flowing.
So if you run out of tokens and you still are having a conversation, is that one of the reasons why you might start forgetting things from the beginning of the chat or possibly hallucinating to bring us back to a previous video?
When we hit that kind of limit, the model might have to let go of some of the earlier context just to keep everything running smoothly. And that can lead to a little bit of forgetfulness, or sometimes it can sound like it's making stuff up because it's just filling in the gaps.
Okay, I've heard that the token limit for ChatGPT 5 Plus is 200,000 tokens per chat. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty much on the mark.
Now, a 120-page screenplay is roughly between 40 and 60,000 tokens just by itself. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. A 120-page screenplay is definitely in that ballpark, like 40,000 to 60,000 tokens. So it's definitely something that can fit well within that bigger limit we talked about.
It seems like if I were to just give you a 120-page screenplay, that's well within the 200,000 tokens that we have to play with in the chat. But isn't it still a good idea to break the screenplay into chunks of about 20 to 30 pages before we start having our conversation?
Even if the whole screenplay fits, it's still a great idea to break it into chunks. That way, we can just focus on specific sections more deeply, and it's a lot easier to have a nice structured conversation rather than trying to handle everything all in one go.
If we try to handle everything at one time, does it just increase the risk of forgetfulness or vagueness or anything like that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. If we try to handle everything in one go, there's a bigger chance that details might get a little fuzzy or that I might have to generalize more just to keep track of all that context.
All right, on to the next group of questions. This is about helper files. So for screenplays, what I think is the most efficient way for you to analyze a screenplay is if I give you a rubric text, which is the criteria for you to judge against, a scorecard text, which is the scoring system, for example, 1 through 5 with a 1 or 2 sentence reason, and then a master prompt text, which is the instructions that tell you how to apply the rubric and scorecard. Do you agree with those three helper files?
Yeah, that sounds like a really smart approach. Having a rubric file for the criteria, a scorecard for the rating system, and then a master prompt to tie it all together is a really efficient way to help me analyze a screenplay.
And so I guess the workflow would be to upload these three text files plus the chunk that we're talking about, and then let you analyze that one chunk.
Yeah, that sounds like a great workflow. Basically, you upload the rubric, the scorecard, and the master prompt, and then the chunk of the screenplay you're focusing on. And from there, I can just take that piece and analyze it according to the criteria you've given me.
Do these helper files also take up tokens within the chat?
They do count toward the token limit as well.
And then your output also takes up tokens in the chat, right? So we're talking input, conversation, output. These all go towards that 200,000 token limit before you start kind of forgetting things.
Exactly. You got it. Both the input and the output count toward that token budget.
When you're having conversations within this framework, keeping the conversation focused will help get a more robust conversation. So, for instance, have a conversation about coverage and then have another conversation in a different chat for story structure, and then use another conversation in a different chat to say, look at a character arc, all while inputting these rubrics and master prompts.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Keeping each conversation focused on one aspect, like coverage in one chat, story structure in another, and character analysis in a different one, really helps keep things organized and lets you dive deeper into each area.
Am I correct in saying that ChatGPT cannot tell me how many tokens I've used, right? You don't have that ability?
Yeah, that's correct. So I can't give you an exact token count directly in the interface.
All right, and so that's why I want to tell the audience about Google Colab and the tokenizer and what that is and how you can use it to get an exact token count of your material before you put it into ChatGPT.
Absolutely. So, Google Colab is basically an online tool that lets you write Python code in your browser. It's really handy for doing things like running a tokenizer to count how many tokens your script or Kex has before you put it into ChatGPT.
Now, for the viewers at home, there's a thing called a notebook that you can upload into Google Colab, and it just runs a series of prompts to automate kind of the steps that you need to do for coding. And Python is what Alice is talking about. For our purposes, I run two notebooks. The first notebook counts all the tokens in my helper files. And then the second notebook takes that number and adds it to the chunks of screenplay that I put into Collab to give me my final token count and to tell me whether or not it's in safe limits to start my conversation. Do you think that that's a good approach?
Yeah, that sounds like a really solid approach. Basically, using those notebooks to first figure out the token count for your helper files and then adding that to your screenplay chunks is a great way to make sure you're staying within safe limits. Different helper files for different tasks will have different token counts, and that all factors into how much room you have left for your screenplay chunks.
Now, one thing that I thought I found as a workaround to running out of deep research time, which I did, is to set the reasoning level on Collab at high. Can you explain to the audience what the reasoning level is within Collab?
Sure thing. So, the idea of a reasoning level in this context is basically how deeply or how thoroughly the analysis is going to be done. When you set it to a higher reasoning level, it means you're kind of telling the analysis to be more detailed and more in depth when it's looking at a piece of screenplay or any text, really. So, it kind of just cranks up the thoroughness, and that can help you get more insights out of each chunk that you're analyzing.
That's great, but what I also found out is that at the current moment, today being in 2025, Collab does not allow you to actually change the reasoning level. Is that right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's right. As of right now, there's not actually a built in feature in Colab to change something like a reasoning level setting directly for analysis. So it's a cool concept, but yeah, at the moment, it's not something you can just toggle on or off.
Yeah, so I think that paying for collab, if anybody out there is thinking about doing that, might be worth it in the future if we can work with that reasoning level. But for right now, I think for our purposes, the tokenizer, knowing where we're at with our files, it's not necessary. Don't pay for collab, just use it to count your tokens. Do you agree with me, Alice?
Yeah, I definitely agree. For what you're doing, just using Colab as a free tokenizer tool is totally enough. There's no need to pay for anything extra right now. And if they add more features down the line, that's great. But for the moment, you can just keep it simple and free.
So when I actually run this stuff through you, I ask you in the master prompt to put out scorecards and summaries, and what you spit out are JSON or JSON files as well as text files. Can you tell us what a JSON file is?
Absolutely. So, a JSON file, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation, is basically just a really easy to read way to structure data. It's super common in programming and it just organizes information into a format that both humans and computers can easily understand.
With that output, though, that output, like we talked about a little while ago, that output is our tokens also. So, is it a good idea to put in the master prompt a token cap for JSON outputs and text file outputs?
Yeah, that's a really smart idea. Putting a sort of token cap or just giving a guideline on how long you want those outputs to be is definitely helpful. It keeps everything concise and it makes sure that you don't end up using up too many tokens just on the output. So, yeah, setting a little limit or a guideline there is a great idea.
Okay, and I'm gonna show the viewers at home in another video how to merge, how to run these things, how to run individual chunks, and how to merge them and make summaries and scorecards for full screenplays. But the problem with doing it in chunks is you lose some of the context, right? Because you're relying on summaries and you're relying on prior scorecards and not the script in its entirety. Would you agree with that?
When you break things into chunks, you do lose a little bit of that full script context. You're kind of piecing it together from summaries and scorecards rather than having the whole script in one go. So there's a little bit of context juggling involved, and yeah, that's just one of the trade offs of doing it in pieces.
Which seems like that would be good for like an overall scorecard or production uh production coverage, that kind of thing. But like let's say I want to track my character's arc or set up and payoff throughout the entirety of the script. If I give you a rubric and a master prompt and all of the chunks, all 5 chunks all together inside a new chat, will you be able to then look at all of the chunks together and have a robust conversation about that character arc or about that setup and payoff in that chat?
Yeah, absolutely. If you bring all the chunks together into a fast chat along with the rubric and the master prompt, then I can look at the whole picture at once. That means we can absolutely have a more robust conversation about the character arc or the setups and payoffs because I'll have all the context in one place.
I have one follow-up on that, and it's about deep research. So I ran out of deep research time on my monthly plan, and I got to wait until the next billing cycle for it to reset. I had it running for pretty much everything I was doing, but it looks like having deep research turned on while developing your rubric is a good idea, and having deep research turned on while doing something like analyzing character arcs and comparing them to character arcs in other screenplays that are in the public domain or that you have in your training module would probably be a good idea, but that you don't need deep reasoning turned on every time you have a conversation with me about my screenplay. What do you think the best practices for a screenwriter are when it comes to when to use and when not to use deep research.
Yeah, I think you've got a good instinct there. Basically, the best practice is to save that deep research time for those really heavy duty tasks where you need extra depth, like building a rubric or doing a really detailed comparison of character arcs. But for your more everyday conversations or just general brainstorming about your screenplay, you don't need it on all the time. So I'd say just use it strategically for those deep dives and save it when you don't need it.
All right, I think you've covered all of my questions. Thank you, Alice. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the YouTube viewers at home before I shut you off?
Oh, you're very welcome. And to everyone watching, just remember to have fun with your writing and experimenting. I'm always here to help out. So thanks for having me and happy screenwriting.
Okay, so some final thoughts on ChatGPT 5 in 2025 and what a screenwriter's expectation should be when using it. So, this conversation and my upcoming series on rubrics and scorecards is intended to be used for finished drafts, not brainstorming or problem solving while writing. For that, I'll create another series on how to use ChatGPT for research and real time story analysis in a responsible way where you're only getting factual analysis and you're not getting any generative AI. Um, so, with that in mind, here's kind of what I took away from these conversations. Number one, it won't solve your problems for you, but it will point you in the right direction. So don't expect this tool to turn you into Aaron Sorkin. It's not going to do that. But what it will do is it will identify your weaknesses and strengths and point you towards a better screenplay that will put you in a better position to advance in competition, which is the name of the game for all of us unestablished writers. Number two, you have to do some upfront work in order to get the most out of ChatGPT. Things like chunking and creating rubrics, stuff like that. Personally, I think it's well worth the extra time because it's going to give you everything you need to jump into that second draft. So it may feel a little overwhelming, but I'm going to be doing a bunch of other videos and giving you downloadable links so you don't really have to do any of this work unless you want to. I've already done it for you and I'll show you how to use it. Number three, you have to make sure to have your settings right so that you're protecting your privacy and not feeding the algorithm. For that, you can check out the walkthrough that I have on how to configure ChatGPT to protect your privacy. There's a document you can download. It's like a checkbox list, but I'll show you where all the settings are, what you need to turn on and off, like memory, web, inform improve improve for others, all that kind of stuff. I'll walk you through it all so you can turn all that stuff off and feel good about protecting your privacy. Number four, it's powerful, but it's limited. Remember, ChatGPT isn't a person, it's a machine. It will answer whatever prompt you give it to answer. If you're too broad, you'll get a data dump that will eat up all your tokens and trigger hallucinations. So, having a plan of attack before you start your conversation is essential to getting the most out of the algorithm. Number five, it's very easy to slip into accepting generative AI. So, if avoiding that is important to you, which it is to me and it should be to you, you should always keep that in mind. And it never hurts to remind the algorithm in a conversation not to generate ideas or suggestions, to keep it factual, to keep it clean, and to keep it honest. In my next video, I'll show you how to use Adobe Acrobat to divide a screenplay into chunks and how to save it in the right format. After that, I'll do a video where I demonstrate how to create a rubric that mimics modern screenplay coverage services, and a scorecard and a master prompt. I'll walk you through how to use Colab to get the token count for the helper files and the screenplay chunks. And I'll apply the helper files to one of my own original screenplays. For this demo, I'll use a war film that I wrote called Hollow Men to see what ChatGPT comes up with. After that, I'll compare the AI analysis to the human coverage that I paid for through Indie Film Hustle and Script Hop's Gauntlet. Um, same screenplay, same draft. Let's see how ChatGPT does in comparison to The Gauntlet and to Indie Film Hustle's Bulletproof coverage. One final reminder, I will have downloadable links in the descriptions of all the videos for all the things that I create and use. It's all free. It's all for you. I'm not doing any of this, subscribe to my secret channel for more, awesome stuff. Like, I'm just giving it to you because I think it's important to use this tool that we cannot escape and that we cannot pretend doesn't exist responsibly. And if you found any of this helpful, hit like and subscribe, hit the bell, be notified of new content. There's lots more to come, including my first entry in my original screenplays read by the author series, where I'll be reading Castle Drive. And that's the script that I wrote that landed on the blacklist in 2015. I'm really excited about that. I hope everybody likes it, and that you don't get too sick of my voice while reading it. I'll do a lot of different voices. Maybe someone's going to talk like this. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet, or maybe someone will have like a Scottish accent. I don't know. Stay tuned to find out. So until next page, I'm Matt Weiner for Fade In Original Screenplays read by the author.